Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Michele and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stamping Up. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope that you're all well. It's a fairly bleak day looking out here. It's been not raining, but it's been fairly damp and I think it's fairly cold outside. I haven't been out there as yet to tell. So I hope where you are having lovely weather. And as I said, thank you very much for joining me. Now, please jump on, say hello, let us know where you're from. And I'm just listening to these birds outside. I live in a street called Lapwing Place, and Lapwing is the name of these silly birds that we have hanging around in our area. And at the moment, they're all sort of landing on our next door neighbour's roof line, which I can see quite clearly now from my workroom, and they're chirping away. But anyway, let's get back to what we're doing. I'm being sidelined here. Thank you for joining us. Jump on, say hello, let me know where you're from. Let me know if you're hearing this okay, because at the moment, as I've said in the last few weeks, I have only got one camera now for the time being, till I sorted out a few things. So it's just my downward camera. But anyway, we're going to get started fairly quickly in this. Hello, Joan. Thanks for joining. A little bit wet where you are today? Yeah, it's a little bit. Yeah, it's just I've got to go out after this live, so I can't keep this live going for too long, so I better get myself started. I've got to go out and go to an appointment. But yeah, it looks a little bit sad outside at the moment. Just a bit on the grey side. But I suppose winter is pretty much here. Hi, Jen. How are you? Thank you for joining us. You wouldn't be too different from me weather-wise at Mollymook, would you, on the south coast? Volume is good today. Oh, well, that's good to hear. That is really good to hear. Okay, so I hope you've all got your annual catalogues and you've had a really good look through. I can now open this and show you what's inside, so which is really great. It's much thinner catalogue than what we've had in the past, but I tell you what, it is jam-packed. I'm really loving this catalogue. It's very different. We've got, at the beginning of the catalogue, we've got all your new products and everything. I'm going to play with a couple of those today. I've got my few favourites in there, which I'm still yet to order. But it's also got lots of inspiration in it. It's got lots of tips and tricks, and lots of how can I put it? Well, for example, a whole 2 pages here on how to do shaker pages or shaker cards. So, lots of ideas, lots of teaching in these catalogues. And I think the way they've set this out is that every time you look at it, hi Margie, how are you? Every time you go to this catalogue and have a look through, I think you'll always find something different because of the way that they've done it, the way that they've set it up. The little tips and tricks are all throughout the catalogue. So I think it's one of those things that you're going to be going back to all the time, and every time you open it, you're going to find something different in here. Now, what we're going to play with today, as I said, I've got to get this going and start creating this card, because I do have to go elsewhere. I'm just trying to get to the page. I've got to just put these tiny little pieces of paper in as bookmarks. But the other week we played with Country Woods as far as we played with the birdhouse. And I created a card using the birdhouse. Well, this is a 2 stamp set dies designer series paper suite. So if we flip it over, we've got 2 stamp sets, 2 sets of dies, 2 sets of designer series paper, some elements, embossing folder, and some ribbons that go with it. So there's quite a bit in this suite, and you don't have to purchase the whole lot. You can pick and choose. Beautiful papers. I really love them. I think they're going to be great for scrapbooking as well as your card making. So I thought today, since I've now got the second part of the country woods, I'm going to have a play with the country flowers. So we're going to create something with this. I've been having a little bit of a fiddle around this morning, so I've got a bit of an idea of what I'm wanting to do. But I thought what I would do is team this up because it's a black and white outline. You don't have to stamp it in black, of course, but it's an outline stamp set. So it's one that you can colour in using your blends, using your watercolour pencils, even using your chalks to get different effects. And I'm going to be using my watercolour pencils. Now, if I turn into the back here on page 118, what they've done is they've given us all the ideas of how to do watercolour techniques. So this is where I'm saying this catalogue has got a lot more information in it than what you expect. So it's given us a brief description on how to do watercolouring with water, with your pencils, with spritzing, and using your pastel chalks. So there's 4 different ideas here. They've even given us an example of a stamp set that you can purchase to start learning some of these techniques with. So which is really, really great. But I'm going to work with today your pencils. So your pencils, there's 2 different assortment packs that we sell. We have the watercolour pencils, which is assortment 1, and we have an assortment 2. But I also recommend getting the blender pens as well. It comes a pack of 3 pens, and that's what I'm going to use today. Now, I usually use the Stampin' Up! Blends or blender pen that comes with your blends, your markers. But today I'm actually going to use your watercolour pencil. So this is, or your watercolour, should I say, blender pen. So you've got your Stampin' Up! Actually, it's colour lifter. Get my words right. So you've got your colour lifter, which is what I generally will use when I'm using my watercolour pencils because I really like the way it blends the colour out. But you've also got your blends, okay? And this comes in a pack of 3, and they're $25 for a pack of 3. They will last you quite a long time. They've got 2 tips on it. Both of the tips are exactly the same. It's just a fine nib tip. The only thing I've got to suggest to you is that when you use them, don't overwork them, okay? If you tend to overwork them, it could tend to make your paper peel. So you do want to use these lightly, but you can flip backwards and forwards between the 2 different tips. Now, in between when you change colours, make sure that you clean off your tip, and I'll show you how to do that as we move along. So your catalogue is not just showing us these days what we've got in our shop to sell, but it's also a great resource for how to do things. So I would recommend you keep your catalogue close at hand, especially if you're trying to learn something a little bit different, a little bit new. Okay, hope I haven't confused everybody too much there. So I'm going to be using my blender pen, and I'm also going to be using some of my watercolour pencils from my assortment pack 1 and 2. And I've got some colours here that I've just pulled out. So the colours I've pulled out is Flirty Flamingo, Daffodil Delight, Balmy Blue, Garden Green, Fresh Freesia, Pumpkin Pie, Old Olive, Granny Apple Green, Melon Mambo. I've also pulled out Coastal Cabana and Gorgeous Grape. Now, I do have a couple of my blends here as well because I sort of thought I might use those on the little pot that is going to hold my flowers in. So I've got those on hand as well. So we're going to start off with grabbing a piece of basic white cardstock, and I like to cut my basic white down to, or a couple of sheets, down to a 1/4 size sheet. So I've started with an A4 and I've cut it down to a quarter of the sheet. If you're in America or somewhere that uses letter size, again, just cut it down to a quarter of a sheet. Just makes it a lot easier to use. So there's 2 stamps I'm going to use today. Now here's our stamp set, and it does come with the dies. I'm just going to take my dies out. We are going to use those dies as well. It's a photopolymer stamp set, and I'm going to be using this floral image here and this one here as well. So, and the sentiment I'm going to be using is just sending love. Keeping it fairly simple today, if I possibly can. Okay, so again, I've got my Versamark. I'm going to have to put a wording on that so I know my tuxedo black, as I said before. I've just taken a white craft stamp pad and re-inked it with the black, with the Memento black. And Memento is the ink that you want to use. Actually, no, it's not. I've got the wrong stamp pad. I'm going to have to grab, because Memento is what you use when you're using your alcohol pens. I was originally going to start using my alcohol pens to do this, but then change my mind to watercolor. When you're using watercolor, you need to use your StazOn. So excuse me 1 second. Let me just grab my StazOn. Oops, it's just tucked in there. Okay. So that's a good thing to remember. When you're using your alcohol markers, you want to use, because they're alcohol, you want to use a water-based ink. And that's where the Memento is really, really good and works fantastic. When you're wanting to use anything that's water-based, you actually want to use the opposite. So you want to then use something like a StazOn, which is a permanent, which isn't going to bleed or anything like that when you use water with it. Not that we're using water today because we are using our blender pen, but if you are using anything like it, and I think the blender pen may also make the Memento ink run. So we'll find out in a second. So let me just clean that off. We're going to use our StazOn. Good thing I remembered that. Okay, so I'm just going to ink that up really, really well. And stamp that one off. It is a sticky stamp ink, but it does stamp up beautifully. Okay, hope you can see that. Just let me see if I can adjust this a little bit, because I can bring that in. I think I'm about as close as I possibly can get it. So there we go. Okay. Hello, Leslie. How are you? So we've got our our StazOn for our watercolor pencils. Now, if I'm going to be using, which I'm planning to do, my pot here, and I'm going to be using that using my blender pens, then I'm going to need to stamp it using my Memento. Okay. So let's stamp that one right next to it, just there. Now, of course, when it comes to cleaning your stamps, because you've got your StazOn, is a permanent. It will permanently clean. You won't be able to clean that off with water, even though I am just going over that a little bit just to take off some of the excess on the top, but it will actually stain your stamp. There is a StazOn cleaner. and I will use that even on my photopolymer, but I will clean it very, very quickly afterwards with the, let me just grab it for you. This is a very old bottle with my Stampin' Mist, just because the Stays On is like an oil type based, and it will leave an oil based residue on your stamps, and I don't think it's the greatest thing to use on your photopolymer. So I do clean my photopolymer. If I've used Stays On, I clean it very, very quickly with my Stays On, and then go straight to the Stampin' Mist or to water to get rid of that excess on there. It's freezing there in Penrith. Oh, I'm sitting in a nice warm room at the moment. I've got my heater going because my husband bought me a heater the other day. So it's really nice and toasty in here. I'm not looking forward to going out. Okay, so let's do some colouring with our watercolour pencils. So I haven't used watercolour pencils for a little while. So I've chosen my Melon Mambo and my Flirty Flamingo to do this particular flower here, and probably some of our buds around. So all I'm going to do is just lay a little bit of colour. I'm not being overly fussy on the way I colour. I'm not even taking my colour right to the edge, because I really want to have, by the time it gets down to the end of the petals, almost to be a white. So I'm just laying down all my colour here. I'm going to come in with my Melon Mambo, and I'm just going to add some darker colour. Now, the darker you push down on your pencil, the more colour you're leaving on there, so the darker it's going to be. If that makes sense. So if I was to use this quite lightly, I'm going to get a light colour. If I want more depth of colour, I'm going to press down and get more depth. So even though I'm using two colours here to colour this, and let me just bring it up so you can see, you can get a similar effect with one colour by just pressing down and having a gradient of colour in the same pencil. Because the more you press down, the darker you can get that to go, and you can come back over the top to give you more colour. So if you want to use just one colour, that's how you can get a different gradient. But I'm using the two here. So I'm going to do that one and that one. And I like to lay all my colours down first. And then on this little flower here, I'm going to be using my Fresh Freesia. And I'm going to lay quite a bit of this down. Again, I'm not taking it all the way to the edge. And I'm really just laying this all down quite firmly. And then I'm going to grab the Gorgeous Grape, and I'm going to come in with the top in my Gorgeous Grape. So this one here is going to have a couple of petals. I am leaving my inside my flowers where I'm going to put some oranges and yellows in there to a little bit later on. I just want to lay these colours down first. And then I have got my greens. Now I've got here Old Olive, but I'm thinking actually I might use my Garden Green and my Granny Apple Green. So I'm just going to take those two, and I'm going to do all of these leaves here. Now again, I'm not going right to the edge. I'm just going half to 2/3 along each of those leaves. And then I'm going to come in with a little bit of the Garden Green and just add a little bit of that in there as well. Love these two colours together. A little bit more, I think, in that one. I think actually what I might do is I might come in with my Flirty Flamingo and do all these flower buds in that. I'm just going to use one colour, I think. Just laying down a little bit of colour there. Of course, you can come back and add more colour if you think you need more. And the only other one I haven't done is this one here. And I'm not quite sure yet what colour to do that. I feel it should be in some of these tones here, just to bring in a little bit more of this. So this is the Fresh Freesia. And I'm going to bring in a little bit more of the Gorgeous Grape in at the base. Now, there are a couple of different ways you can use your watercolour pencils. You don't have to put your pencil directly to your paper. You can actually take the nib of your either your aqua painter or your blender pen and pick up the colour directly from the pencil. For example, if I take this, I can then take my blender pen directly to my pencil and add my colour that way as well. Okay, so there's lots of things that you can do with this. Now, when you've used these, you're best to clean the nib before moving on and changing colours. So I just run my nib on my paper until it comes out clear, and I'm just turning my nib around just to make sure that I'm getting a clear nib, and then I can go on to a different colour. Okay, so you can see there I'm just blending that out and then just clean it off before I go to a different one. Okay, just like that. Now you can see how I've coloured that in. And now all I'm going to do is use my blender pen, and I'm going to stick within these colours first. So I'm going to do, I think, my little buds here first, and I'm just doing a flicking motion just to push that colour out a little bit. This is just going to give you quite a soft watercolour look. And as I said, I'm not working this too much, because if you do work it too much, you can tend to pill your paper. So what I'm doing is just pushing that colour around. I can come back in a little bit more and add more colour if I wanted to, but I want this to be fairly soft and look like a watercolour. So I clean my nib a little bit there, even though I am going to go to another pink one. But this one here has also got your Mellow Mambo in it, and I'm just again going to flick that out to the edges. If I have white areas, I'm not really worried about that, because I do want it to look a little bit like a watercolour. And all I'm doing is just taking those colours and just pushing them out. And you'd be amazed how much of this your watercolour pencils just melt away, really. Just pick up that Mellow Mambo and just push that out a little bit. Now, I don't know whether you can see, but this area just there, I'm a little bit aware there that I'm starting to probably get a little bit too much moisture. I want to leave that section alone now, let that dry before I go back to it, because otherwise I'll get that pilling or that balling of my paper. So now I'm going to go to this one here, and I'm going to start off with these outside leaves, these petals. Just push that colour out. Clean off my nib again, and then come back into this one at the top, which is the Gorgeous Grape, and pull those colours out. And I'm just going to use a little bit of that gorgeous grape underneath, just to bring out from underneath. So there we go. So how many of you have played with your watercolour pencils and your blender pens? Now I'm going to this one here where I've got the two-tone. Again, I'm just flicking that colour out. I don't want to blend the colours so much as just flick it out so you've got a little bit of all those colours coming out. Okay, so you've got sort of like the, hopefully a little bit of that pink coming through. If you don't think you've got enough pink coming through, you can always come back in. Oops, wrong one. Not pink, it's the Fresh Freesia, and just give that a little bit more of a colour in there. And again, just blend it back in. Okay. You use your watercolour pencils all the time, Marie? That's good. I really enjoy using them. I enjoy using my blender pens as well. And I sort of started playing earlier with the blender pens, and I thought, oh, I haven't done anything with watercolour for a little while. So now I've cleaned off my nib again, and I'm just going to start now pushing those greens out. But I do love using watercolour pencils. So there we go. I've just pushed that colour out and just left that darker garden green in at the base. Now what I do want to do is I'm going to grab the Daffodil Delight and add a little bit of that in there with a little bit of the pumpkin pie. And again, just blend that all in. And I'm just really just dotting that at the moment. Just wanted to dot that colour around. It's such a small floral area. You really doesn't take much to actually colour it. So that's all my flowers done. And now I'm going to grab my blends just to do our little bucket here. So I'm going to start off with my light. And I'm just going to colour a little bit of that in there. Might just flick that a little bit just to sometimes I just like to come down that outer edge just so then I've got a line there, and then use like a tick flick to bring that colour out. Now, of course, when this all dries, it'll blend together. Now I'm going to come in with my darker one and then just do a smaller flick from that edge going in, not going as far as what I did with the lighter. I'm using grey granite here. And then I'm going to come back in again with my lighter one, because I always like to start with my lightest and then go with my darkest. Again, I'm just flicking through that 2 shades just to blend those colours all together. Now I'm using a fine tip here. Usually if you're doing something that big, you could work with your brush tip. So what I might do is let's do the brush tip from the other side and see what the difference is. So I'm just going to turn that around. Again, I'm just going with my brush nib and I'm doing a flick. So I'm not actually doing that line like I did on the other one, because I'm just doing a flick. It's like a tick, but it's not a tick where you go down and up. It's just a flick tick. So it's just to give you a lighter edge on one side. And then I'm going to come in again with my darker one. Again, just doing a slightly smaller tick. And then I'm coming back in with my lightest, the grey again, just to go over the top to blend those colours together. So one side of that I've done with my finer nib and the other side I've done with my thicker nib. So just so that you can see a little bit there. Now you can come back in with your colour lifter. I mean, colour lifter is really good if you've gone around the edge and you've gone over a bit to lift that colour, because what colour lifter does, it pushes the colour away. Or what you can do is just use, again, your brush tip and just flick those colours just around the edges, and it'll just soften those colours a little bit on those edges. You don't want to do too much, but I'm just going over that just to soften those edges so they sort of blend a little bit more together. Okay, just to give it like that. It's just really a matter of keep playing. I just keep playing until I get the effects that I like. Now, some people like to start with their dark first and then go to their light. I like to start with my light and go to my dark. So it's really, I think it boils down to personal preference. How's my knee? I'm on fairly strong painkillers at the moment. They've told me I've got very bad arthritis in my knee, like I've got nothing left between the bones. So it's now a decision on what to do next. But they won't, from what my GP was saying, they won't operate on me unless I've lost weight. So that is my next major goal, is losing weight. And they've sort of suggested having gastro banding, and I've gone, no, don't want to go down that track. So I don't know yet on what the long term is. But last week I was in terrible, terrible pain. This week I'm sort of just living on painkillers. So thank you very much for asking, Deborah. It's been a pretty rough couple of weeks, really. But off to see my chiropractor again this afternoon to see whether he can help in any way in the fact of getting the muscles and everything to relax in my body, because they're all tensed up, which doesn't help the situation. Okay, so let's cut this out. So I'm just going to cut this down, straight down in half there. And we're going to grab our dies to do a bit of die cutting. So there's all sorts of dies here in different flowers. There's lots of dies in this for leaves. You can add, you've got all of these added, whoops, there's the camera, added flowers that you could die cut. Let me just bring a few of these out so we can see them. So you've got those flowers. You've also got these leaves. So you've got the shapes and everything for all the different, the outline dies to cut out all the different bits and pieces. So this one here we'll cut out that one, which is what we've just done today. Let me just bring that down out of that so you can see. There we go. This one here, we'll do the little teapot, the leaves, the stool. That one there is just like a basket or a pot, which I don't think is in there as a stamp. No, it's not. Then we have this one here, which will cut the outline of those flowers, which we've done. We've got some more leaves and some more flowers and a little teapot lid. There's quite a bit in this as far as dyes and everything is concerned, which is really good. I love it when you've got lots of different choices of the different things that you can do. So, as I said, this is just my first play with this particular one. So I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of fun with this over the next 12 months. Having lots of play. So let's just die cut these ones. So we're going to keep just turning this around until we get the right position for it. So we've got that in there. Our dies do hug our stamps really, really well, which is great. I'm just going to die cut that one. So there's that all nicely cut out now. I love how we can die cut something, and as long as we've positioned it right, it comes out really well. And then we've got our jug on top. And of course, if you're a bit worried about these moving, just add a little bit of post-it note, something like that to hold it in place. I tend not to like washi tape myself because for some reason washi tape doesn't like me and it will always rip my cardstock on me. So I love using post-it note. So there's our pot. Let me just bring those back into view for you. It's funny now that I've got my camera in a different position. I'm sort of out of view all the time. So I've just got to learn to work further in on my table. But so sorry if I keep missing the mark. Okay, so I've already cut some bits and pieces with cardstock. So what I've got here, I have got Misty Moonlight cardstock. I've got a piece of basic white to go on the inside, but we're going to put a bit of a trim on that as yet. I've got the new designer series paper that goes with this suite. So I've got this one here, which looks like denim. And then I'm using a couple of pieces of this particular one, which looks like, to me, is like the eyelet fabric that we used to have a lot of back in the 70s. I think it's come and gone a couple of times since. I've got a piece of basic white, which I've cut. Sorry, excuse me, my voice is starting to go. Using the beveled edge rectangular dies. Sorry, deckled edge, not beveled edge. Sorry, deckled edge rectangle dies, because I just love the finish on that. And then I've got a few strips here of both the what did I pick? I got the purple, the fresh freesia. People call that purple posy for some reason. That's long old. And then the other one is the Calypso Coral. Okay. So what I thought we'd do is we'd put it so I put out the colours that we used in this. Even though I don't think the Calypso Coral is quite the same, but it's not too bad. And we're going to have a bit of a play. So I've got an idea in my head. So let's just see if this idea is going to work out. So Let's remove that, and we're going to take our piece we're going to put on the background and adhere that onto the front of our card base. Sort of almost going to give us a denim and lace type look, I think. Very country floral type thing. Now, what I thought I would do, I've got quite a few pieces of these two here, and I'm going to do a little bit of tearing. Now, if you tear towards yourself, so I've taken this and I'm going to tear towards myself, I'm going to be left with a piece here, which is the piece behind, which has got that soft torn edge, and it's got, because we've sort of got like a, it's peeling the paper in half, so you've sort of got a slight furry edge. You could turn it over and use the other side, which doesn't give you that furry edge. I like this one because of the texture, but that's how we can get that. And I'm going to do that with both of these two pieces of Calypso Coral cardstock. And if you just keep peeling it towards yourself, so you're holding one piece and peeling the other piece towards yourself, you can get it reasonably straight, but we don't necessarily need to have it all straight. It's good to have some texture in there. And then I'm going to do the same with this one here as well. Just want to soften it rather than having a hard cut edge, because we are doing something with flowers and floral. We're going to do the same with this piece here as well. And actually, while we're at it, we might as well do the same with two pieces that I've got to decorate the inside of the card. So there's those pieces, and I've got another two here. Now, all of these pieces are cut about 2 centimetres in width I started with by 10 centimetres. Because our card base is 10.5 by 29.9, and I scored that at 14.9. Then our design series paper piece here is 10 by 14.4, so I've gone down by 5 mil, or if you're doing that in Imperial, you would go down by 1/4 inch. So there's our pieces, all with that torn, lovely torn edge. So I've taken this, I'm going to use this piece here. Now this piece here, again, is 10 centimetres by 3.5. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to layer this here. Now I'm going, doesn't matter which one you put where, but we're just going to layer these pieces on either side, just like that, just to give a really nice sort of a rustic country sort of feel. So I'm going to start with putting a little bit of glue. You could use your seal, of course, for this. Pop that onto there, just want that peeking out. And then again, I'm just going to pop a bit more glue on the top here. And then this one here is going to come out from that. And then we're going to repeat that again on the bottom. So I'm just going to pop, whoops, throw my glue around. A little bit of glue there. Add that to there like that. Now this is a, if you don't want to use ribbon, I don't use a lot of ribbon in a lot of my work, but this also can give you that nice soft effect without having ribbon as well. So that's just going to give me that really nice border with that nice sort of furry type edge. And then I'm going to glue that straight down there. I'm not going to put dimensionals behind that because the layers of the cardstock underneath is already starting to lift that up quite high. Again, you could use your seal. I'm only putting the glue on the outer pieces because it won't even hit it on the inner one. It's sort of risen up above the other, and I don't really want it to be pushed down, if that makes any sense. So that's that piece. So now I'm going to repeat the same with these pieces here. This is to go on the inside of our card. So I'm going to pop this piece here on top of that. I only need one of these pieces, and that one can go there. And then this is our insert piece, which is cut at 10 by 14.4. Again, I'm just going to add glue down onto this section here, and then glue that to my card insert piece there. And then that can go on the inside of our card. So we've got something to write on. When we send this out. Okay, so there's the inside of our card, and there's the outside to start with. Okay then. So my idea is this piece is going to go on there, and then we're going to have our bucket, and our flowers that might come down a little bit more, and we have our sentiment. So I want to stamp my sentiment up here, and I'm just going to use my memento for this. Just want to grab a scrap here. It's got a lot of ink on that, that's okay. Try to get this as nice as straight as I possibly can. There we go. Probably a little bit further over that side, but that's okay. It'll still work fine. Just give this stamp a good clean. So now we have this piece is going to go on here. Now, because I have a difference in height between this top level and this bottom level, I'm just going to add dimensionals top and bottom. You could, if you wanted to, just add a little bit of glue down the center there. Take those backings off. Just want to add that there like that to one side, because I'm going to have my pot coming out, which is going to balance that up. So my little pot is going to go about there. So I'm just going to put dimensionals just on this side of my pot. Might just pop another one just there. Not worrying too much about the other side, because it's going to be hanging over the edge a bit. Yeah, probably just about there. Now what I do want to do, and I know I've got it here. Now where have I popped it? Okay, got some linen thread. Just because I've got this handy on my desk at the moment. But you could use your white baker's twine. Just running that through my fingers a little bit. And I'm just going to leave myself a tail, just wrap this around my fingers, probably about 3 times. I like to have a nice full sort of bow, even when I'm using twine. And you just pull your fingers out to the length, the size you want your bow to be at. And all I'm going to do is just, oops. Just want to bring that in a little bit tighter. And because this knot is actually going to get hidden, I'm not real fussed on how the knot part looks in the middle. I'm just wrapping those 2 tail bits around it. It's a very coarse way of doing a bow, really. Oops. I might just redo that because I've got one piece a lot. Just going to take one of those off, I think. So let me try that again. I ended up with one piece of my bow tail a lot bigger than the other. Of course, if you've got a bow maker, it makes it a lot easier. This is probably not the best way of doing a bow, but in the end, it's going to be all held together. So I've just done a half hitch there. And I'm just going to tie that off to the second knot. It's not the most secure bow, but I'm going to put a glue dot and it's going to be tucked in underneath. If I could be bothered to get my bow maker out, it'd probably make a big difference. It's not the most secure bow, but anyway, it will do what I want it to do. It's just basically going to pull that all together. Let's grab a glue dot. And I'm just wanting to pop that glue dot just about there. And that's going to sit on top of that like there. And then all I want to do is bring these out. Just want to fluff them up a bit. Probably actually just push that a little bit more. I'm going to lift that. It's all going to get covered. I'm just going to lift that and just bring that a little bit more that way. Just then I've got a little bit more of those bow pieces coming in that direction. Add some dimensionals onto the back here. Those two ties coming downwards a little bit. Just don't want our wording to be too covered up. Actually, one of those might have to come off. So I just took off, I put 3 dimensionals on there, but I've just taken one off because it's sitting right on top of the bucket and I didn't want that to be sitting down there like that. And I'm just going to cut my ties off. And there you are, there's my card for today. Just a very simple little card using both the watercolor pencils and using my blends. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I probably could have had either my flowers down a little bit lower or my sending love a little bit higher. I couldn't go too much higher, but yeah, probably could come down. See if I can move this down just a fraction more. That's probably better. There we go. We're not so on our wording now. Beautiful. So I hope you've enjoyed this card. I hope it inspires you to grab your watercolor pencils and have a play and to try out some of the new products. The only other thing I probably would do is probably put a glue dot just underneath there, just to hold that down, just to make sure that that's secured and sitting flat on that. But there you are. There's my card for today. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you all have a lovely week. It's been wonderful having you all here on sharing this all with me. And now I really do have to get going because I've got that appointment. So see what the chiropractor can also do for my knee. So take care. Have a lovely week. I really enjoy having you here. I enjoy your friendship and your caring as well. Really appreciated your words of kindness over the last couple of weeks. So that's been fantastic. Thanks very much. Take care, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.